What made you straight up nope out of a relationship? Story 1. After maybe 2 years of him constantly trying to make me jealous, we temporarily had a 16-hour time difference as I was traveling home to see my grandparents. Well, I was asleep for maybe 7 hours because, it was nighttime and I hadn't responded to his 50 texts. He finally said that he was going to spend time with other girls for 7 hours that day because that's how long I was probably going around spreading legs. I don't know why, but at that moment, it was like a moment of clarity, and I just replied, okay, blocked him, his family, and all his friends, and just moved on. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. I had a very long and toxic relationship with an ex. I had wanted to leave for years, but he would threaten to kill himself and I would end up staying. I finally got the courage to walk away when I was diagnosed with several benign liver tumors and was told by the doctor that it was very important with this type of tumor to immediately and permanently stop taking hormonal birth control. I researched it on my own and confirmed the single most important thing I could do to avoid further complications was to stop taking the birth control for good. I told my then husband about the appointment and he said, so calmly, well, that's gonna be a problem. I was like, what do you mean? I'll just go to the gyno as soon as I could get an appointment and we can just use rubbers until then. Nope. Rubbers were unacceptable because we were married, and not banging until I got to the gyno was also unacceptable. What really made my blood run cold though was when he suggested that I should continue to take the birth control as normal and just not tell the doctor. He'll never know, he said. Then he went on to suggest that maybe I could go on and off birth control so I'd be off it for any follow-up appointments with this doctor to ensure that he'd never know. I was totally stunned and I just looked at him and said, you understand this could kill me. This isn't about placating a doctor, this is about my life. He just shrugged and said he wasn't using rubbers and I needed to figure it out. Yeah, I did figure it out. I left him more than a decade ago and have never been happier. Story 3. Holy mother of flashbacks. Dated a guy who genuinely thought he was an anime character, a demon from hell who redeemed himself and fought other demons by night to lead a demonic revolution for the greater good. His words. He had a shrine of himself with a sword he had made by a Nepalese monk. He made anime noises when he hurt himself, tried to start a gang who would fight in his name, pretended his real name was Japanese, and reinvented a whole part of his life. He'd transform every time he'd smell my period blood and refuse to get a real job at 26 because his other job was too much pressure already. He broke up with me, I know, saying he was dark and I was light and it could never work because it would end up destroying us both and potentially the world. Story 4. Married for 6 years. Started out thinking that she just struggled with depression and anxiety sometimes, but things kept escalating. I walked away when she threatened to stab me in my sleep. We had already tried several couples therapists and individual therapists, but she refused to consider medication. I called her to meet up and try to find some closure, but she cut me off, telling me I wasn't allowed to leave her, and as punishment, she was sleeping with 2 other guys. At that point, I just ignored her number and filed for divorce. Hope she's doing well, but glad to not be afraid for my life. Story 5. We weren't in a relationship, but I had a developing thing with a guy once. Until one day when I wasn't around, he and some other friends of ours went to a bar and he sneakily slipped stronger alcohol into some other girl's drink. This girl apparently was talking a lot with one of our other friends and not showing him much attention, so he got jealous and threw his friend on the floor and started to strangle him. He was obviously thrown out of the bar after that and later tried to play it off as just a joke and just messing around. How do you jokingly try to strangle someone anyway? Yeah, so I dropped this guy out of my life after I found out. I definitely wouldn't want to be stuck with someone like that. Story 6. I had a huge crush on her for a while but never had the opportunity to talk to her given our weird work schedules. Then, a friend from work sets us up. I was elated. First date goes really well and we hit it off. We start spending as much time as we can around each other, talking on the phone every night, all the special things you do when you're starting a new relationship. Then she starts coming over more often unannounced. She would stay for a couple nights, then a week, and then 2 weeks. I would come home from work and she would be in my house, sometimes drunk. Thing was, she had been almost fired for an incident involving alcohol before and was lying to them about her sobriety. She would have a few too many and then go off about her family or how I wasn't taking our 2-month relationship serious enough. Final straw dropped on Valentine's Day this year. She gets annihilated to the point of not being able to walk on her own. After I refuse her drunk advances, she flips out. What followed was a couple hours of her threatening to drive home drunk, sitting outside so the cold weather would freeze her to death, laying in my bed and wailing my name till hoarse, and alternating between manic laughter and crying. 2 days later, when she was sobered up, I told her to kick rocks. We dated for just around 3 months. Quickest turnaround ever for me in a relationship. Story 7. Second date. Context: we'd known each other since we were kids, flirted a lot over the years as casual friends, not close friends, just acquaintances, and then tried dating in our 20s. Him: do you want to get married someday? Me: maybe, I don't know. I'm not even sure if marriage is right for me. I just kind of want to travel and build a career and stuff. That's all I'm thinking about right now. Him: what about in 5 years' time? Me: I don't know. Maybe? I mean, if it's the right man, maybe. Him: I've loved you ever since we were kids. Me: thanks. Him: if we're together 5 years from now, would you marry me? Me: I'm not really sure. Spoiler alert, at this point I am desperate to run the frick away. Him: I'd hit a girl if she didn't marry me after 5 years, like straight up beat her up. Yeah. Bye-bye to the friendship, too. Story 8. Not like you're not pretty, but you would be so much more attractive if you looked like, insert my baby sister's name. To which I said, you mean 15 years younger and a minor, 6 foot, blonde and a size 2? He said it in front of his friends and everything went dead silent. His best friend punched him in the arm and told him he was being a dong. I got up and walked out. His sister called later to apologize for him being an a-hole and told me his entire family was upset with him. Worst part? He genuinely didn't think he did anything wrong. Story 9. Genuinely feared for my safety. I went over and we got into an argument, so I slept on the floor essentially. I went to the bathroom to text one of my buddies to come pick me up since I thought she'd fallen asleep. I suddenly get a text from her saying, "Where are you?" and my phone made a sound. I froze up and opened the bathroom door and she was already standing there waiting for me in the darkness. She didn't say a word at all, just stared at me until I walked by. I went back to my spot on the floor and got under the blanket and pretended to be going to sleep, until she did. After about 30 minutes, I decided to peek out from under the covers and she was literally towering over me in total darkness with her eyes wide open the entire time. I got the frick out of there so fast. Story 10. He didn't have a car, so I'd help him with rides to work. He worked third shift at Toys R Us stocking shelves. I picked him up one night and he was so drunk he could barely stand. I made some comment about how he isn't going to be able to work. He started throwing crap at me in the parking lot. I threw his crap on the ground and left him there. I've dealt with one too many alcoholics and I wasn't wasting any more of my time. Cut to 5 years later, he is now sober and getting married this year. So proud of him. Story 11. My husband of 5 years choked his sister and lifted her off the ground by her throat a couple nights ago. I'm not sticking around to see if it happens to me. He was drunk and she smacked him because he was being verbally abusive to me and getting in my face. He turned around and tried carrying her up our stairs by her throat. After that happened, I was crying. I grabbed my purse and started walking for about 20 minutes before I called the police. He stayed the night elsewhere and now wants to go to therapy with me. I've been trying to get him to go with me for months, and now that this has gone public and he could lose his promotion, he's finally decided to go with me. I told him I want a divorce yesterday, and I'm working on things I gotta do today for that to happen. Edit. Thank you for all the kind words. I'm trying to read through all the comments and reply when I can. For those saying it's fake, my video evidence suggests otherwise. I'm running around today doing what I can to get out, and I have a wonderful group of friends and family ready to help. As far as my sister-in-law goes, she's 18 but still lives with her parents for now. She's trying to get out as well, but her mother bullied her out of giving her a statement to the police and pressing charges. Her mom cares more about my husband's career than my daughter's well-being. Biggest nope of my life. Update. He's frozen my cards, and now I have $100 to my name. I don't think I could hire an attorney even if I wanted to. Story 12. My brother came to visit me. After I spent the whole day with my girlfriend, it was time to see my brother because we didn't see each other for a long time. We prepared some snacks and about to start Lord of the Rings because both of us love Lord of the Rings. She called me and started a long conversation on the phone. I said my brother's waiting for me, and she said that I cannot spend my time with anyone because it belongs to her. That was the last talk between us. Story 13. When my now ex-wife came into the living room where I was sleeping on the couch after a fight and started lunging at me. She asked me if she reminded me of my stepdad, who used to come into my room at night and stand over me before he dragged me out of bed by my ankles. He would then put the boots to me for whatever sins I had committed that day. She was the only person I had ever shared this with. She went out of town for work 2 days later, and when she came home, I was gone and in another state. It was remarkable the amount of abuse I'd put up with at that point. It dawned on me then that if he had returned to my life, I wouldn't let him hurt me, so there was no reason to let her abuse me either. Story 14. I dated this girl who is super jealous, and I mean super, super jealous. I couldn't hang out with my friends without her constantly calling me. Obviously, I couldn't do the same because how could I be jealous? That would have meant I didn't trust her. That alone is annoying enough to end a relationship, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. After 9 months, I found out from one of my friends, who also happened to be a close friend of hers, that she had been hiding her sexuality to me. She was actually bi. At first, I really didn't get why she did that, because I have no problem with these things. Mutual friend then told me that she was going around banging other chicks. So basically, she was hiding it so that she could bang with any girl she wanted to without me even suspecting anything. Sometimes, she even had threesomes with the girls' boyfriends. When I told her everything I knew, she started telling me that she didn't want me to know because those other people didn't really matter to her and she didn't love them. Yeah, needless to say, I noped out of there. Story 15. My brother took a girl to a high-end sushi place and his date ordered 3 times the food as he did. He just got a grilled salmon. She ate almost none of it, and at the end, she said she ordered all the extras so she could take some home for tomorrow. When the waiter showed up for the bill, she excused herself to go to the bathroom. The waiter asked my brother if he wanted to split the check. At that point, my brother did the right thing and stuck her with $100 worth of sushi and booze. The girl returned to see a huge check at her seat. Story 16. Telling her it must have been great to grow up with parents from different cultures. We were on our second date after her talking uninterrupted about her family's background for 45 minutes. No irony from me or anything, just a straight-up positive and genuine comment. This was followed by 30 minutes of full emotional breakdown in a packed bar and loud comments about my perception of race. This was followed by intense stare-downs from every patron in the bar. And that was followed by the waiter swooping in with shots to her, asking to pay her bill, and asking me if I need to leave. I felt bad about triggering some sort of trauma, but yeah. Was publicly accused of racism on the second date. Always wondered what the third date had in store, but didn't stick around to find out. Story 17. Showed up late at my place one night because she couldn't sleep at her place alone. I was fine with that until she started talking about why. When she was alone, the demons in the corners and edges of the room would fill the dark spots and watch with their glowing eyes. I urged her continuously to get help, to go to the doctors, but she wouldn't do it. What she was seeing was real. I felt terrible leaving her for that, but I wasn't equipped to deal with someone who needed professional help and refused it. Story 18. She came to stay over for the first time. It was the night before New Year's Eve and we were just planning to go out drinking for New Year's. I had just worked a 12-hour shift, carpet fitter, so manual labor, and I was exhausted. She had a few drinks and started to get aggressive because I just wanted to relax that night, but she wanted to go out drinking. We broke up 3 days later. My father was an aggressive drunk when I was a kid, so I could see how it was gonna go. If you know you're an aggressive drunk, get off the drink, man. Story 19. Her father recently got into a brawl with a date's teenage kid. I was concerned and asked questions. She then explained how the teen had it coming because they didn't know their place. Feeling confused, I asked her to elaborate again. It turned out that the grown man punched a mentally disabled autistic teen rather than simply walk away. I told her that I refuse to date people who are cool with domestic violence. She was immediately remorseful, but then defended her father's drunken, violent outburst against the child just a few moments later. Do not date people who think that an adult ought to beat a mentally disabled child. Story 20. Not even a relationship, but got very close. Met a guy through a local theater and I thought he was cool, but then he started following me around everywhere when I was at practice/shows. The last straw was when I didn't get notified that a practice had been canceled and he was waiting there, saying, "I just felt like someone would show up," and it raised my alarm bells. Worst part is, when I tried to get help from the director or other actors, they'd ignore me or tell me that he's just trying to be nice and he can't help it. I blocked and deleted his number since, and I'm sad to say I haven't gone back to public theater since, as he's still actively involved in most plays in town. Story 21. I was going through some stuff in my early 20s and was pretty desperate for any kind of affection, which is the only reason I took a couple weeks to back out of this. The second time I ever met her, she told me to delete every girl's number from my phone, sister included. She then came over to my place, saw that I had a full bookshelf and ridiculed me for being a reader, and in the same breath announced that she loved drugs so much she wanted me to try it. Finally, I escaped, but by then she was already sleeping with 2 of my friends, who are obviously no longer my friends. The good news is I've now been happily married for 5 years and I consider myself so incredibly lucky. Story 22. We had been together for quite a while, 6 to 8 months, and lived together for at least 2 months when I decided to make tuna salad. I asked how he liked it. He told me. I came back with 2 bowls. Half the can made his way and half the can made my way. He completely freaked out. He said, "If we can't agree on how to eat tuna, how will this ever work?" I said that we don't have to agree. We can both have it exactly the way we want and be happy. He vehemently disagreed. I started thinking all of his other controlling behavior and inability to compromise. It wasn't that day that we broke up, but it was definitely the day our relationship broke. Oh, the cheating didn't help either. Story 23. Massive druggie. Like, it's one thing to do it while partying. I don't, but I can see the appeal. He was that way when we first started dating, and I was okay with it, even if he was kind of an a-hole while on it. He was a constant user once we moved in together, and it turned him into a raging a-hole. Even worse, he was spoiled. Mom and Dad paid for everything, so he didn't have any reason to be sober outside of when he was at school. Within a month of living together, I completely ghosted on him because I couldn't take it and I did not want to deal with the aftermath. Story 24. He wanted me to spend time with only him or my family. He checked my phone and wanted me to have only 5 chats. My mom, my dad, my sibling, and him. I couldn't talk, say hi, or hug my male friends, and eventually I wasn't even allowed to have them. I wasn't allowed to meet my girlfriends neither. At some point, he took my phone and unfollowed every male in my Instagram. He used to come to my place and stay there with me to avoid going out. I dreamt about traveling to Japan, but he said no, because at that time I really liked one Japanese actor, and he was afraid I could meet him and fall for him. Toxic AF. I had the balls to break up after only 2 years of the relationship. He stalked me for a couple weeks after. Now, I value myself a lot more, and would never, ever let someone do something like this. Story 25. Not romantic, but this guy is a residential assistant at my university, a student who works with security to help with issues on campus. And he had been my friend since first year. When I first met him, I got bad vibes. I'd be mid-sentence talking about something I liked, and he'd pat my head and ask me to sit with him. My flatmate told me to give him a chance, so I simply did. In second year, we went out for a walk, and he spent the whole time insulting my outfit. It was a little different to what I normally wore, but I'd bought a new hat and was excited to wear it. He told me the hat didn't suit me and would suit him more. He took it off my head and wore it instead and just trashed my outfit. We get to a forest area while on our walk, and he tells me something along the lines of, if somebody assaulted you, you'd be completely defenseless. I told him that my chunky shoes would protect me as I could kick them, and he swept my legs out from underneath me to prove that I couldn't defend myself. He said, "Your shoes didn't help you there, did they?" Later, while I was back home with my parents, he called me around midnight. He did a lot of fishing for compliments. Then he said, "If you could bang with me, you would." I'd told this person about my intimate trauma, so this hit pretty hard. I spoke to my mental health advisor at university, and he told me that that was harassment and physical assault and I should report him. But he's an RA. He's the person I should be reporting these things to. I just avoid him now. Edit. Okay, I've read through some of the comments. I have a meeting with my mental health advisor who works with the university to talk about it more. It was good to hear from other RAs too. There's unfortunately only one RA currently, a good friend of mine who defended his behavior in my first year, so I'm not comfortable talking to him. We have limited staff on my campus as it's the rural campus for my university, but we do have security, so I think I'm going to speak to someone higher up real soon. Thank you to everybody. The comments have been a real kick in the butt. Edit 2. I told a couple of you guys that I was going to get some pepper spray or something similar just in case something happens again, but after researching it, they're actually illegal to carry in the UK. Update. I just spoke to someone on the accommodation team and they're going to pass it on to the wardens for me. Thank you, everyone, for your advice and support. Story 26. I kept having to call the cops to calm down my wife after she became addicted to a slew of prescription drugs. I told her doctors that opiates for a ruptured vertebrae, stimulants for ADHD, Ambien most nights to help her sleep, and an assortment of others for anxiety and depression, and more to combat side effects, made her violent. One of the times that I called the cops to calm the situation down during a bad episode just made me cry. All he had to say was that he had already been there and asked when it would stop. I thought I'd been holding things together reasonably well. I had an office job where no one knew what was up, though my work had suffered greatly. I kept clothes and food in my trunk, just in case I had to stay out for a bit because she had decided I was part of the conspiracy. I had a gym on the way to work where I could shower or just have some downtime. I did all of our housework and errands because she couldn't do work or do much of anything most of the time. Each time she cut herself, she told the hospital it was an accident, and she always tried to go to a different one. We lived in a major metro between hospitals. The cop saw through it. Being seen like that and knowing that even that lifestyle was running out hurt. I'm now recovering from the divorce and enjoying the calm. I still sometimes panic for no reason, and I feel more comfortable with clothes and food stashed in the trunk, but I feel much healthier. I get more sleep, my blood pressure has normalized for the most part, and I don't cry at work anymore.